it's on to the NBA because who the hell wants to watch in heavy rain tonight the New Orleans Stinks go up against the Seattle Stinks? Not going to be great. So guess what? NBA slate tonight. And guess what? There's 9 games. And it actually, Ghost, if I'm not mistaken, looking like a pretty good DFS slate tonight for the NBA. That's what you tuned into, the NBA show right here, WinDailySports.com, all sponsored by the Sharp app. Go to sharp.link, and you can check out all the ways to download the Sharp app, whether that is the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Also, still, the 1-week free trial is available to you. There's PGA this week. There's the NBA. There's NASCAR. There's NFL. There is a ton of things for DFS, and we have you all covered for that. So sign up for the 1-week free trial. Go to WDS.one/live week, and you can get a 1-week free trial, which includes the good old optimizer. Our human optimizer here, Ghost, going to help us with some NBA DFS. And Ghost, if I'm not mistaken, solid little NBA DFS slate tonight. Not little.
I really like this slate.
Yeah, it's a good one.
A lot. So, and seeing where everyone's going, seeing where ownership is landing right now, it's going to be a very big night.
Yeah, I think so. So what makes this so appealing? Because it's 9 games. It's not one of the bigger slates, or it's like 11 game slates, anything like that. But we got 9 games. What is making this one so appealing? Is it certain matchups? Is it the fact that maybe some players are out? What is making this one so appealing?
There's just so many viable pivots to, like, my lineup construction is going to be the same across all my builds. And there's just so many pivots in the same price ranges that, it makes it easy to get off guys that are 30+% owned that shouldn't be 3% owned, let alone 30% owned. So to be able to, maintain a similar lineup structure is very rare in any sport, especially in NBA with the amount of injuries that are coming in. So NBA DFS is like no other when it comes to players missing games and having to keep up with the news and being at your laptop, not even up until lock, but even after that because of late swap. And that can be the difference between I don't want to say min cashing and winning 100K, but it is to that point where, one swap can add a couple zeros at the end of your payday.
Yep, it definitely could. And so I guess what I want to get out of the way, because the value spots obviously are where we're going to find, and that's going to be the majority of the show, finding those values because of obviously injuries that are there. So I'll start with this and get this out of the way. What are the stars, these top players, 10K, 9K players that we're looking at? Because obviously if we're going to play some of these value plays because of injuries, that means we're going to be able to fit in a lot of these guys at the top.
It's a really interesting spot for the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, get to talk about another Washington game. Seems like we talk about them every single day. But everybody is playing the James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo combination tonight. So everyone's spending $20,000 in salary on those two guys, and I am spending $20,000+ of my salary on 2 guys, but it's not going to be those ones. So those are your 2 studs for cash games. For those of you that play cash, you can go Harden and Giannis. I encourage you to go Harden and Giannis, because if they do put up, 50, 60, 70 DK, you will want them at ridiculous ownership in those cash games, because we don't care whether we finish first or the last place on the pay line. We just need to get over that pay line. That's what cash games are. So I'm not playing either one of them in GPP. If there is one that I will consider, it's going to be James Harden, especially in a matchup against Spencer Dinwiddie there out in Washington. But very interesting spot for Brooklyn, considering they're on the front end, at the back end, of a back-to-back, just having played Charlotte yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So
and they're 1-2. So it's not been the greatest of starts for
they Brooklyn. Are, and we already know that it is confirmed that Kevin Durant will play tonight. That was confirmed earlier today too, because on the second half of back-to-backs, look for KD to end up possibly sitting some of these out. But even a matchup against Washington, they're not really in a spot right now with Bradley Beal playing and with how Washington started out of the gate to be able to necessarily afford, sitting out KD, especially with, their
and this is not necessarily going to be a blowout, I'd say. Like, I think there are legitimate problems right now with Brooklyn, enough to keep Washington in this game. Yeah, so I don't think that's a concern.
Absolutely. And considering they have a retirement home over front court with LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin and, and Paul Millsap, look, yesterday Blake sat and today Aldridge is sitting. Like that's what it's going to be. Like it might not even be back-to-backs, and these guys are going to have to sit out games because they're all at the tail end of their careers, right? So they need KD, they need Harden every single game that they can. So if KD told Steve Nash he's good to play, that means he's good to play. So I rather go to Kevin Durant over James Harden just because you're getting the best scorer in the NBA, all-around scorer, arguably the best player in the league at 5% ownership compared to James Harden, who is vaulting up to 30+% now. So there is always a concern that, Brooklyn's offense gets out to a ridiculous start and then Harden and Patty Mills just kind of carry the load a little bit. But personally, I think Washington is a lot better. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was explaining just now. Like, I don't think they limit him. Like, it's not going to be a hard or a soft limit on KD's minutes at all. It's really going to be game flow dependent, right? Like, it's very similar to what we've seen in Philadelphia for your 76ers to start the season, right? Like, it's to the point where Doc has been putting out the bench, and hey, if they can keep a 10-point lead against Oklahoma City, which they couldn't, then that's when, okay, we need to put Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris and Seth Curry back into the game. But if Patty Mills and, the rest of this Brooklyn bench are going to be able to keep that lead that they'll have over Washington, if they even have one, that's where you might see Kevin Durant playing 29 to 30 minutes instead of 33 to 35 to 36, right? So it is going to be entirely game flow dependent, and there's no way to really predict anything of what's going to happen. I just personally think that Washington looks a lot better than what a lot of people had them pegged for, myself included. So, yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of injuries out there in Boston. We will talk about that. But yeah, that's my take on this Brooklyn game. I'm going Kevin Durant and GPPs. If you are playing a Brooklyn player, I'm not even saying I am playing Kevin Durant.
And he's the one. Like, I know James Harden, we are going to put him in our lineups a lot, but you're seeing early on, like, Kevin Durant is kind of going for it here to try and jumpstart, I think, Brooklyn. Like, he's put up 60 fantasy points per game, and I think this is another one where he's going to have to do something along the lines of that to get Brooklyn a win here. And look, they should be 0-3 right now, too. I mean, they should have lost the Sixers game if it wasn't for the Sixers collapse. So, yeah, they got things to work out. If it wasn't
for Kevin Durant, that was the game where... Yeah. And you're going to see that a lot when they play good teams. It's going to be KD, please save us. And it will literally be that in the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? So again, 36 minutes last night. Am I worried? No. Am I not thinking about it at all? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But at the same time, it's Washington. He's going to be able to do it. Even if he plays 30 minutes, he's going to hit 50 DraftKings points. And at that point, with the way that Harden's kind of playing a little bit more passive, that's where you like, if you're going Kevin Durant over James Harden, forget about whether he scores guys around him like Sabonis and Paul George and Jokic and Giannis, etc. You mainly need him to outscore Harden because everyone's going Harden, and KD's 5%, James Harden's 30% on. So that's the pivot. It's not really about those that are around him. I might not even play either one, as crazy as it sounds, because I love attacking Washington games, but I don't know if it fits my build, and I love the amount of studs that are on this slate and how good of a spot they are in. So I will touch on a couple guys like that. Paul George is lock city for me today.
Paul George,
sub 5% Paul George. I just don't get it. Kawhi is not coming back anytime soon. I don't know how many games into the season that
you mean he's not coming back tonight? That's not
like I don't get it. Like, it's just, I don't know if people randomly think the guy's just gonna hop on one leg and go out there on the court and take touches away from Paul George. Like, it's just like it's gonna be like this for the foreseeable future for the entire season. For Paul George flying solo out there, playing hero ball, and doing it extremely well. I've watched both Clippers games, and they have been so fun to watch against Golden State and Memphis. Ja Morant going back and forth with Paul George was arguably the best one-on-one battle I've seen this year so far. That was so fun to watch. And now he's playing a Portland defense that constantly blows. Like, they really blow. Like, they are terrible on D. They're beyond terrible on D. Talking about perimeter defense that consists of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. They don't even know what defense is. So you have that on top of the fact that both of these teams have been playing at ridiculous pace, because that's what the Clippers need to do, because they run an Oompa Loompa lineup out there where it's just a really short lineup where they got to play fast and they got to move the ball fast. And that's exactly what Paul George needs. He's hitting step back threes right in people's grills. Like, it's just, he's already coming out guns blazing. Like, I need Paul George in my lineup tonight, on top of him being sub 5% owned on a slate, which, like all 82 games, is going to be without Kawhi Leonard. It's going to be one of those points where, and by no means are these guys in the same vicinity, but last year we were playing Nick Claxton for like 3 months before people started playing him. I'll gladly take Paul George sub 5% every single day, because there's nobody right now on this slate that's going to have the volume like Paul George is going to have, on top of being in the best game environment on the entire slate.
Yeah, look, he's consistently been the guy, and he has to be the guy out of necessity for the Clippers. And so, yeah, I think what we've seen here is a very, very good, even just floor for Paul George. Like, let's just say he doesn't have his best game. Still, that floor is astronomical compared to most, because of the amount of usage that he gets. And of course, we love ourselves some usage. So those are the top guys. So we're going with a couple of 10K guys here, which means we need to go with some value. Where are we going for the value? Especially with some of these.
Stick in that same game. We're actually going to go in that same game and go in Portland with LA for our late night hammer. Norman Powell is out, and I'm expecting a very, very thin rotation in Portland tonight. You have two guys in Nazir Little and Anthony Simmons who they're going to see minutes. They're going to see 20-plus minutes in a spot like this. Nazir Little's likely is going to start for Norman Powell. If he doesn't, it's going to be Larry Nance, but I would be shocked, because that just it's not the right fit alongside Robert Covington and Joseph Nurkic. So I would expect Little to start, see, roughly 25 to 27 minutes. And it's the same thing for Anthony Simmons when he's coming off the bench. He's coming out. They run this 3-man rotation in their backcourt with Anthony Simmons, with Dame and CJ, of course. Like, he's always coming in for one of those two guys. And when he's coming in to handle the ball, and he's coming in to score. Right. So I do like both of those guys, sitting at 3,600 and 3,800 respectively. Those are two guys that are very high on my radar, just because of the fact that, again, there's very few people playing these guys. And when it comes to these 3K, 3.5K, 4K value plays, I tend to give a strong lean to the ones that are in elite game environments versus those that need things to go right for them to produce individually.
Yeah, and Brian is all over that one as well. Hey, welcome, Brian.
He's a Blazers fan too, so
yeah.
Brian's the man.
He's trying to tell you to chill on the Blazers too. So
you know how much I love the
Blazers.
Harsh like, you know how much I'm hard on them because I love them. Like, it's just I want this team to win a championship, and I want Dame to win a championship in Portland, and seeing them make 0 moves in every offseason to address their lack of defense is just, it's so frustrating for me to see. But it's good for DFS, so I'll take it on that side. That's for sure.
So some more value spots. Where are we going? Maybe a little bit of Washington for some value. Maybe a little bit of Toronto, Chicago. Where are we going here?
We'll talk about Boston. Well, I said that I want to adjust the injuries there, so we'll talk about Boston and another Eastern Conference matchup with Milwaukee and Indiana next. There's some value in that game too. But so Jaylen Brown is in this game. But Al Horford is out, as is Romeo Langford, who sucks. He's terrible, but it opens up minutes. So that's what we need. We just need minutes. I don't care about the guys. Like, Romeo Langford can't do anything on the court. So it's fine that he's out. It just means more minutes for guys like Williams, guys like Josh Richardson, guys like maybe Peyton Pritchard sees a bit more run after the way that he played last night. But again, it's going to be Tatum, JB, and Robert Williams going nuts in a spot like this against Charlotte's, I'll say vulnerable to throw them a bone, extremely vulnerable front court, right? So Robert Williams kind of burned a ton of people last night. I don't mind going back to that same spot because this is another marquee matchup for him, and he matches up really well against that Charlotte front court. Tatum and Brown are not really two guys that I'm going to be looking at right now, just because of the fact that both of them are likely to take 25 to 30 shots, but it's literally a coin flip about who's going to actually hit those shots sometimes. So if you are looking for value, Williams is there at 3,700 if he gets that spot start for Horford, which is what I'm anticipating. And if you're living and dying in the mid-range tonight, it's not a strategy that I'm taking, but the build that I do have, I'm allowed one mid-range guy with the amount of 3K value that I'm using. One of them can be Robert Williams. I don't mind going back to that spot at all.
Yeah, Robert Williams there in the center spot, which is good. We always like to get that one out of the way there. So any of them, which one would you prefer? As you just said, you were going down there with Richardson, Williams, and also Pritchard a little bit. Like, what are the circumstances that you would be putting that kind of minimum price Pritchard in?
I would have to check the model. Obviously, I'm not checking it when I'm live on air with you there, but I would assume that with Langford out, Pritchard will probably see 12 to 15 minutes. And again, is that enough for him to get there? That's where I lose. I use the model to dictate that. So if he's popping, I'll use him. If he's not, I won't use him at all. And right now, knowing my model, I don't think he's going to be popping whatsoever. I think he'll be at a clean 5x, which for 3K value, I'm looking for ridiculous value there. So I'm likely not using him at all, but it's exactly why we have it, and it's exactly why it runs every 10 minutes leading up to lock. So
there we go. Milwaukee, Indiana, as you said, we wanted to go to this game next. Obviously, we see some out all there. So where are we going?
Yeah, so for Milwaukee, Jrue Holiday is, quote, extremely doubtful to play. So
that's good. He might play then. He has
I mean, I've had him out since 5:30 in the morning when I ran it, right? So he was already out for me. So he's likely not going to play. Brook Lopez remains out. Dante DiVincenzo obviously still recovering from his injury from last season. And now we get news that Bobby Portis was supposed to come back into the lineup, got hit with a very late questionable tag, meaning that during morning shoot around, something didn't feel right. And now I just got the notification that he's out. So I'm going right back to Jordan Nwora. There's no reason for him not to see the floor in a game like this with no Brook Lopez, with no Bobby Portis. Like they're likely going to be running Giannis at the 5 again. It's going to mean minutes for guys like George Hill and Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen, etc. But why play with the carousel of guards when you know Jordan Nwora is going to get 20 plus minutes and he's a point per minute guy, if not more, when he wants to be. Like last game, he put up just over 20 DK in 21 minutes and he shot horrendously. Like he shot 3 for 13. He couldn't hit anything. And he's still putting up 20 DK, right? So at 4,200, he's 100% in my lineup right now. There's no way that I'm taking him out. I actually had $100 left over in my lineup purposefully to see if I wanted Nwora or Portis. Portis is out. That answers my question. I'm 100% locking in Jordan Nwora with Paul George in my lineup. Those are the two locks that I'll give out on the show. It's going to be Paul George with Jordan Nwora.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring that one up again because I know we mentioned Little and Simmons, but interesting question of whether or not you can play them both. Would you suggest that or?
I wouldn't on Fanduel. I know Mike plays a lot on Fanduel, so I would not do that on Fanduel. Like when we're talking about these 3 to 3.5, 4.5 value guys, that's mainly for DraftKings just because of the way that the builds are completely different from site to site. There are a ton of guys that I would consider on DraftKings if there wasn't this much value. And you could still play them. I'm still going to make a lineup where it's completely different, and I'm likely only going to have 1 or 2 studs in there instead of 3. And you could use guys like Eric Bledsoe, and I literally would throw up in my mouth a little bit every time I say his name when it comes to DFS, but he's starting off hot. And we're talking about, again, the most elite game environment in Portland and LA. So getting a guy like Eric Bledsoe, I really like Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a slate like this too, especially with Devontae Graham being 30% owned and Nickeil Alexander-Walker being 5% owned. Same team, same backcourt. The lower usage rate and lower producing player is 30% owned, and the extremely more talented, higher usage rate, higher fantasy point per minute player in Nickeil Alexander-Walker is only 5% owned. So similarly to Harden and Kevin Durant, you don't have to go to another position. You don't even have to leave the team. You stay in the same backcourt. I really like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Those are guys that I'd be targeting on FanDuel where they're not even remotely close to a necessity on DraftKings tonight just because of the amount of value that we have. The build structures are completely different. So to answer the original question, I wouldn't play both Anthony Simons and Nazir Little on FanDuel because I know that Mike plays FanDuel. On DraftKings, I'm okay with it. I just rather not because I want one of Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum in my lineup to counter that Paul George offense. So I want it's likely going to be Damian Lillard for me. especially I'll talk about that. I'll end the show by talking about that game, why I'm playing so much Damian Lillard tonight with CJ McCollum going off early this in the season, but I'm all over Damian Lillard tonight. So considering I'm likely playing Damian Lillard, I'm not going to have both of Anthony Simons and Nazir Little. Little will fill up the box scores. Simons is going to produce offensively, but because I'm playing Dame or CJ, I don't want Simons going nuts. Like that's where the lineup correlation comes in, right? So if you're playing a Portland guard, like one of their main backcourt guys in Dame or CJ, I would go with Little because you rather him get the greasy rebounds, a couple layups, get to the stripe a little bit. Whereas if Anthony Simons is going 8 for 8 from deep, that means Dame or CJ are not shooting the long ball. And I don't want that in my lineup because I'm playing one of the two of them. So as much as I think Simons outscores Little, just by pure lineup correlation, I can't have them paired together because there's only so many shots to go around.
So this is an interesting one. I want Mora, but can't over Grayson, need the guard spot filled. Basically, I guess what I want to ask there, Grayson Allen, is he in play tonight?
I mean, yes and no.
That sounded like a no. I don't know. You said yes there, but
like the minutes are going to be there. Yes. Yeah, like it's not a very convincing yes for me. The minutes are going to be there. The opportunity is going to be there. Just you're going to have to remember that his main task tonight is going to be guarding Malcolm Brogdon. Right? With no Jrue Holiday, their defensive scheme shifts completely, which is why before we move on to the last game of the night, which is before I talk about another guy in Indiana, like their defensive scheme changes completely when Jrue is out because that's their main on-ball defender, that's their main perimeter defender. And when he's out, Grayson Allen becomes that guy, right? So he's going to be on ball on Malcolm Brogdon. Like that's going to be his main task tonight. It's not going to be producing on offense. And if he's matching up on Brogdon on one side, Brogdon's likely just going to play him on the other because that's just the kind of player that he is. And Brogdon's a very good defender. So I don't really like that matchup for Grayson Allen, but the minutes will be there because if they don't have him on defense, Milwaukee is, forget about covering the spread. They're losing this game.
Nice. I like that. All right. So any quick other value spots? I know you want to get into Damian Lillard and why you're smashing him so much tonight.
Yeah. So
but just real quick, one last value spot.
Yeah. There's two guys that I really like in the value to extremely lower. There's actually three guys in the low mid-range. I guess it's mid-range to me. It's value. Chris Duarte has been balling out in his rookie season for Indiana. And just as I was explaining with Grayson Allen now guarding Malcolm Brogdon, all that does is open up the world for Chris Duarte. So sitting there at 5,400, the moment Jrue got ruled out, he skyrocketed in my model. So I really do like him today based on his one-on-one matchup and the opportunity that he's going to have. Milwaukee's always had trouble guarding the perimeter, and now it gets significantly worse when Jrue Holiday's out. So I really do like Duarte. And then we'll go to, I think it's actually 3 games in a row. No, Brooklyn game ruined it. But the second game right after that is Detroit Atlanta with my boy DeAndre Hunter being ruled out. This is a Cam Reddish game. And sitting there at 4,700, I don't believe many people are going to play him because of lineup construction and the way that he kind of hinders people's builds. Seeing Gallinari is not healthy. If anyone has confirmation of Gallinari is confirmed out, that would be great. I had him as questionable. So if anyone sees that Gallinari is confirmed out, please drop that in the chat. But if Gallo's out, it's a Cam Reddish game. Like, yes, Bog is going to be there. And yes, Kevin Huerter is going to be there. Perfect. Thank you, Glad.
Boom.
That's exactly what we needed. So yes, Huerter is going to be there. Yes, Bog is going to be taking shots as well. But Cam Reddish has been like, yeah, I love this guy. I talked about him last night against Dallas. Like, it's just, and he went off. He went off in 28 minutes, put up 20 DK in 28 minutes at like a mere $4,000. That was 7x his value. Getting there at 4,700. He's going out there to shoot, and seeing him take 14 shots off the bench has been amazing. Like, the volume is there for him. He really took a step up this season. And yes, he is guard eligible, Brian. Yep. So if you want Reddish shooting over Grayson Allen, hint, hint, they are $100 apart.
Nudge,
or the same price. Nudge, nudge. Get that done.
Wink.
And the last guy that we're going to talk about is Precious Achiuwa, seeing significant minutes for my Toronto Raptors. Not the most ideal matchup, far from the most ideal matchup out there in Chicago, going up against Vooch, who is also questionable in this game. If Vooch gets ruled out, it's that much of a better matchup for Precious Achiuwa. But seeing his minutes climb into the 30s in 2 out of 3 games, being the last 2 games too, it's been remarkable to see how disciplined he's been on the defensive side of the ball to not get into foul trouble. So I really like what I'm seeing from Precious there. Obviously, I watch every Raptors game. That's just obviously for very clear reasons. So seeing Precious Achiuwa there at 4,500, I do like him. It's far from the ideal matchup against Vooch, but at 4,500, I really do like his role, seeing 30-plus minutes. And Nick Nurse has publicly, not privately, this isn't from Toronto sources up here up on the north side of the border. It isn't from beat reporters. Nick Nurse said publicly in a press conference, Chris Boucher needs to pick it up. So he's not having it with Chris Boucher on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball right now. Precious is going to get a ton of run, and Toronto needs to win games. They need to win games right now. This is a winnable game for them. So I really do like Precious there at 4,500.
Yeah, and last thing, we got to get out of here in a couple of minutes. But Damian Lillard, you wanted to speak some words on the GOAT.
All right, so it is Dame time tonight.
Dame time.
Yeah, shout out Adam. Wrote a outstanding article today. If you did not read that, windailysports.com.
I will
we
put
are
it
lucky,
also in the comments.
Extremely lucky.
Yeah,
we are extremely lucky to have Adam on the team with the amazing content that he produces across seemingly every single sport for us. And he pretty much put in the article. He put a little meme that we share there. In this house, we play primary ball handlers against the Clippers. The primary ball handler tonight is none other than Damian Lillard. Everyone knows that.
Love it.
Do not forget, never, ever forget Damian Lillard hitting what seemed like 100-foot 3-pointer with Paul George guarding him when they were going back and forth when Paul George was with OKC with Russell Westbrook. And they had this little wave goodbye thing going on. And Paul George waved them off the court when he hit a game winner. And then Damian Lillard ended the series, waved them off the court because he just sent them packing. Damian Lillard hates Paul George. He despises Paul George. So you want a little chip on your shoulder for a guy that's been kind of slow out of the gate and seeing CJ McCollum take over this offense right now? Do not be surprised if Damian Lillard doesn't just surpass his prop of 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists, or known as PRA. He might drop 40 raw tonight. So I'm taking a whole lot of chances on a ridiculously low-owned Damian Lillard because James Harden is only $200 more. Everyone's going to James Harden. I'm taking Dame, going to bed, and then waking up to that game stack of Damian Lillard and Paul George. I say I'm going to bed, but I know the game's going to start, and then I'm going to end up staying up. But
yeah, and then you're going to go to bed.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. So Ghost, great job tonight, as always. Yeah, it's a great slate. And so for more, check out that article again in the comments section and also be in the Discord chat. Ghost will be there. WDS.1/live week. Get a 1-week free trial. Use the optimizer projection model. All of that with a 1-week free trial. And also, this is all sponsored by the Sharp app. Go to sharp.link and you can either download the Sharp app through the Google Play Store or Apple App Store, whatever one that you use. That is it for us. We'll be back tomorrow with some more NBA DFS right here at windailysports.com.